Alright, so we're back in the shop. It's Wednesday, I think. So as you can see, it's we've got a little bit of progress done here. So we got the engine in, the headers on, the wiring harness, the fuel system. I do still have a lot of cleaning up in the wires to do because haven't figured out all that yet. Drive shafts in, shifter, the factory shifter linkage hooked up. Yeah, so I think that's about pretty much it. Got the radiator in, the fan on, topping it off with fluids now, and then I got a write a file for the ECU to run it, because that's actually this ECU is out of the regular cab short bed truck out there. So it was a 4.8 4L60, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but this is the LS6 out of the Cadillac. So and we got a 4L80 behind it, and then we got a it's the same converter that was in Little Red. So it's the Summit 3000 3200 stall converter. This is a 373 geared truck. I pulled the pump assembly out, put a 340 in tank in it, and then put this little regulator up on the rail. I don't know if it's PQI, it looks like a PQI, but it had some hoses and fittings and was about the same money as a PQI, so I'm hoping that it works out okay. I haven't turned anything on yet to see if it's going to work or not, you know, because I haven't written a file for it and all that. I've just been, you know, steady working, trying to get everything together. So I got EV1 to EV6 adapters. I was going to run the car intake, the LS6 intake, and put a drive-by cable throttle body on it, but the bracket and everything was in the way, so I had a Trailblazer SS one, and then I had this throttle body. So if you look up in here, ooh, that hole right there, I'm going to have to really open that out and round the edges off, because otherwise it'll have that freight train whistling noise like the other truck had. And it looks like I bent that laying on it. So that was the shield off of a 4L60, and then I put the works good. So I like drive-by cable. Michael, I think he likes drive-by wire, but I don't know. I like drive-by cable just because there's less things that can go wrong in communication with the losing communication and sync and all that, you know. With a cable, you put your foot in it and you know it's open. So these are the headers off of the C10. They actually fit perfect. The motor mounts I got off of Amazon. If you can see them, maybe not. They're slotted, and I think they were less than $50, and you know, it allows you to put the engine in there, and then you have a lot of fore and aft movement, which is great for when you're trying to keep the stock drive shaft. Since this was a 700 R4, it had the 27 spline yoke, so I had to press that off and put 4L80 32 spline yoke on there. And luckily, I had a yoke that had the outside clips on it, and it pressed back together beautifully. So the drive shaft's done, and I was measuring the length of the drive shaft from where it was riding and setting the fore and aft on the engine, and it's a carbon fiber drive shaft, and it's 6 feet long, so it's a pretty long drive shaft. I was told I probably wouldn't be able to do over 100 miles an hour with it, but we probably won't be trying that in this thing. But I think it's coming together pretty good. I got to build an exhaust for it and finish up my wiring over here and figure out what all this is, because like I say, I'm not very familiar with these trucks. The Chevrolet wiring and whatnot, you know, especially the older stuff. So the ECU's under the dash, and you can tell as the years progressed in automotive design that they learn from their mistakes, because you can't even get to that ECU in there. I don't know how you get it out. Somebody wanted to buy the 4.3 out of here and was asking about the wiring harness and the ECU, and I was like, that was before I had really started messing with it. And I was like, yeah, you can have the ECU. And then once I found where it was, and I was like, golly, I don't even know how to get it out. I don't want to take the dash out. So yeah, it's just and then this pass through right here. They had this. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. This right here. So they had this together. This is the bottom, I think. So this goes on there like this, and then this goes on there like that or something. Yeah, something like that. But look at all of this glue they put in there. I like to never got this thing apart. I was not happy with this thing. I'm surprised it's still in as whole pieces as it is, with as much anger as it enraged in me. But this was like, I don't know what kind of glue or what this is, but it was not coming apart. And I was trying to separate my ECU wiring from the truck harness and all that stuff. So I thought there was a connection or something in here, which would have made sense. But back then I guess they just filled it with glue, and then that was our pass through. So maybe I'll use some great stuff or something to fill it up next time. I'll wear gloves, because one time I got the stuff on my hands and it took like 3 months for it to come off. That stuff will stick to anything. So back here we got an ICT adapter going to our engine coolant temp for the truck. Up here we have our engine coolant temp for the GM. Back there we have another ICT adapter going from our oil sending unit to, I think it was 1/4-inch pipe, which is the truck's oil pressure sending unit. So that's in there hooked up again. So I want the gauges and everything to work. The alternator, if you don't know, you need to run in there's a 470 ohm resistor. If you don't run that, it'll burn up the alternator. So if you're doing a swap, you need to add the resistor. That's pretty much it. I did use the CTSV pan. It fits nicely. It's flat with the cross member and everything. Everything's nice and flat, tucks in very well underneath. And then all I did was put the truck accessories on here. And then for the power steering, what you do is you take your fitting off of the 1-inch fitting that screws into the pump. You take it and the hose that came out of your swap vehicle, and then screw it into your new pump. So then that remedies that situation. And then obviously the return just is not really a pressure hose, so you just need to seal it up. But actually these headers fit better in this application than they did in the C10, because on the C10 the heater box is all in this passenger header, and you can't get to anything about these back two tubes. You can't get to anything on those and the 69. So these are one of 7/8 Schoeneck, or however you say it, Schoeneck, whatever. Like I said, I did not like how they fit on that, but I didn't realize that GM was this universal, because I'm coming from Ford. Everything had to be, year, make, model, color, day of build, and everything for, Ford to be fit to fit. Whereas, apparently in Chevrolet, everything fits. So it's a breath of fresh air to, just to have so much interchangeability, And then, I mean, these are the mounts from the 69, actually. This one, the mounts, the little rubber things that go in the core support, lined up perfectly for this radiator. And then these, those lined up perfectly. That fit these bolt holes here, and then I just had to drill the center one here and use a longer bolt. But I mean, I was super impressed with how easy that went together. This is a Mustang fan, so SN95 Mustang, not Cody Mustang. So these pull a lot of air, and I already have my 75 amp relay on there, Bosch relay. So I have to give it keyed power and ground the fan, and then that'll be operational aside from programming it. I think that's pretty much it. That transmission dipstick tube is horrible. Like, I forget which one it is, but this is the second time I've bought it. And it fits the transmission great, but when you put the engine and transmission together, it's nowhere even close. And the bolt hole it lines up to on the bell housing, it doesn't even use that bolt hole. So I had to cut the tab off and then bend it in the vise, and then get a new piece of metal, you know, with a hole in it to bolt to the cylinder head, L bracket, and then weld it to the tube to get it secured. And then it's, you know, way in the back and pointed straight up, whereas the Chevrolet ones curve forward towards you, so you can, well, they kind of curve too much on the factory GMs, so when you're trying to put it in, you know, it's like running out and down onto the engine. But I don't know why it's that hard to make a dipstick tube. You think that'd be pretty simple, but anyway, I'm gonna write a tune for this thing, and then I got to get this out of here. I've got to move on. I've gotten way too distracted on this thing. I've got to move on to everything else that's in the yard. So the 700 R4 that came out of here is going in the 57 Chevrolet. So I've got to get this thing off the lift now. Get the transmission going on that. Measure for my drive shaft length. Get Mike to cut and fit and balance that for me. And then we've got a turbo build out there. It's a 2011 Denali 6.2 all-wheel drive truck, and he brought it down for me to do a turbo build. So I've got to get rocking and rolling on those two. We ordered a computer for the Escalade. Hopefully that's it. And then I've got a Suburban out there too that has a laundry list of things needing done to it. So yeah, so I want to get this thing as far as I could while it was in here and on the lift and everything. So now at least, you know, if I need to move it, I can crank it up and move it out of the shop. So I'm really happy with how well it's come together, and hopefully hear it run here in a couple hours.